Hi there, welcome to my course on Spring Boot. In this first lesson, I'm going to give a brief introduction to Spring Boot and also show you how to create a simple web application using Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a framework that makes it very easy to create web applications using Spring. It enables rapid development by following the principle of convention over configuration. It reduces the tasks performed by a developer, thereby facilitating quicker development. Runs as a standalone application with embedded servers such as Tomcat, Jedi, etc. Provides various starter modules which simplifies dependency configuration, does auto configuration wherever possible. There is no requirement for XML configuration, simplifying development quite a bit. In addition, it provides production-ready features such as metrics, health checks, and externalized configuration. It also supports running from a command line. Next, I'm going to show you how to create a simple Spring Boot application. So we will create a simple Spring Boot project using Maven. In Eclipse, we'll create a Maven project using Maven Archetype Quick Start. The project needs to inherit from Spring Boot parent. We'll need to configure the Spring Boot parent artifact in the parent section of the pom.xml. So in the pom.xml of the project, in the parent section, we need to use this artifact ID Spring Boot parent. So I'm going to go over to Eclipse now, and we will take a look at. So this is the Maven project that I created. It has the usual Maven structure: source main Java, test Java, resources. We are going to look at the pom.xml, and as I was mentioning earlier, in the pom.xml we need to have a parent section where we need to specify the Spring Boot starter parent with a version. And what the version does, so everything is going to depend on, all the libraries that are going to be used will depend on this version. So please note that this dependency version is specified in a single place. All dependent libraries are based on this version. So what this does, it eliminates any potential error caused by incompatible library versions. And also for upgrading, we just need to change the version in one place. Next, in our project, we will create a simple web application using web starter module. So we will set dependency for Spring Boot starter web in our pom.xml file. Spring Boot starter web is one of the various starter modules available in Spring Boot, and this is needed for setting up a Spring Boot web application. So what we are going to do is we are going to add this dependency. So as you can see, it's using the artifact ID Spring Boot starter web. Please note that there is no need to specify the version for this starter web, as this is automatically decided based on the Spring Boot starter parent version. So this is again, it simplifies, and it also removes chances of any incompatible library version. We'll look at Eclipse next. So what I have done in the pom XML file, I simply added this dependency for Spring Boot starter web, and based on this, it has added a whole set of libraries which we can see in the dependency hierarchy. So if you look here, so for the Spring Boot starter web, it added Spring Boot starter, Spring Boot starter Tomcat. This is needed for running the embedded Tomcat server. The Spring Boot starter validation classes, Spring Boot Jackson data bind, and Spring Web and Spring Web MVC. So with all these libraries, it can run as a web application. Now in our project, we are going to create a startup main class using annotation Spring Boot application. Spring Boot application is actually equivalent to using configuration, enable auto configuration, and component scan. So this will be the startup main class for the Spring Boot application. It has to be annotated with Spring Boot application. And in the main method, there will be spring application.run, which actually fires the Spring Boot application. So I'm going to go to Eclipse next. So in the Spring Boot Maven project, I have a package com Spring Boot. Within that, we have our startup main class app.java. And as you can see, it has been annotated with Spring Boot application, which actually makes it the startup class for the Spring Boot application. And in the main method, there is spring application.run. So now this has been configured to run as the startup class for the Spring Boot application. Now when we run the startup class, by default it's going to run an embedded server, which will be Tomcat. We will next add a REST controller in our project so that we can test our simple web application. So we will add a hello world controller. It will be annotated as a REST controller. We will add a request mapping for hello world. So when a request comes in to hello world, it's going to invoke the hello world method, and it should return this hello world string. So let's take a look at Eclipse. So what I have done is I have a com Spring Boot controller package, and within that I have added hello world controller, which is a very simple REST controller. It has the REST controller annotation, and it has this request mapping. So when this request comes in, it should return hello world from Spring Boot. So now our simple web application is ready. In order to run this, we can simply right click on our startup class and run it as a standalone Java application. So I just did that. So it started the Spring Boot application, and as you can see, it's running Tomcat on port 8080. So what we can do is we can go to the browser and we can go to this URL and test our simple web application. So in the browser, so we can visit this page, localhost :8080/hello world, and if I hit enter, yeah, it comes back with the string returned from the REST controller. So our simple web application is ready. We created a simple Spring Boot application, and we configured it as a web application using the starter web module, and we added a simple hello world REST controller to test our web application. That's all I had in this lesson. I'll be covering Spring Boot in more details in the subsequent lessons. Thank you for watching.